Lesson 261.
One day a man went to see his doctor and said, "I've swallowed a horse, doctor, and I feel very ill." The doctor thought for a few seconds and then said, "All right, Mr. Lloyd, I'll help you. Please lie down on this bed." The doctor's nurse gave the man an injection, the man went to sleep, and the doctor went out quickly to look for a horse in the town. After half an hour he found one, borrowed it, and took it into his office, so when Mr. Lloyd woke up, it was there in front of him. "Here's the horse, Mr. Lloyd," the doctor said. "I've taken it out of your stomach, and it won't give you any more trouble now." At first, Mr. Lloyd was happy, but then he looked at the horse again and said, "But, doctor, my horse was white, and this one's brown."
Lesson 262.
A history teacher was talking to his class about the ancient Romans. "They were very strong, brave people, and they were good soldiers," he said. "They always wanted to have strong bodies, so they played many games." "Did they like swimming?" one of the girls asked. "That makes people's bodies strong." "She was very good at swimming." "Oh, yes, some of them swam a lot," the teacher answered. Then he told them a story about one famous Roman. "There was a big, wide river in the middle of Rome," he said. "It was the Tiber, and this man swam across it 3 times every day before breakfast." The girl laughed when she heard this. "Why are you laughing?" The teacher asked her angrily. "Have I said anything funny?" "Well, sir," the girl answered. "Why didn't he swim across the river 4 times, to get back to his clothes again?"
Lesson 263.
Betty Brown was 5 years old, and her mother wanted her to begin going to school because she wanted to start working in an office again. A month before the beginning of the school year, Mrs. Brown began telling Betty about school. "It's very nice," she said. "You'll play games and paint pictures and sing songs." Mrs. Brown began doing these things with Betty. Betty liked the games and the painting and the singing very much, but she always wanted to be near her mother, so Mrs. Brown was rather afraid and thought, "What will she do when I leave her at school?" But on the first day at school Betty was very good. She did not cry, and she was happy. On the second morning, Mrs. Brown said, "Put your clothes on, Betty. I'm going to take you to school in half an hour's time." "School?" Betty said. "But I've been to school."
Lesson 264.
One morning Mrs. Perry said to her husband, "Jack, there's a meeting of our ladies' club at Mrs. Young's house at lunchtime today, and I want to go to it. I'll leave you some food for your lunch. Is that all right?" "Oh, yes," her husband answered, "that's quite all right." "What are you going to leave for my lunch?" "This tin of fish," Mrs. Perry said. "And there are some cold, boiled potatoes and some beans here, too." "Good," Mr. Perry answered. "I have a good lunch." So Mrs. Perry went to her meeting. All the ladies had lunch at Mrs. Young's house, and at 3 o'clock Mrs. Perry came home. "Was your fish nice, Jack?" she asked. "Yes, but my feet are hurting," he answered. "Why are you hurting?" Mrs. Perry asked. "Well, the words on the tin were, 'Open the tin and stand in hot water for 5 minutes.'"
Lesson 265.
Miss Green was very fat. She weighed 100 kilos, and she was getting heavier every month, so she went to see her doctor. He said, "You need a diet, Miss Green, and I've got a good one here." He gave her a small book and said, "Read this carefully and eat the things on page 11 every day. Then come back and see me in 2 weeks' time." Miss Green came again 2 weeks later, but she wasn't thinner, she was fatter. The doctor was surprised and said, "Are you eating the things on page 11 of the small book?" "Yes, doctor," she answered. The next day the doctor visited Miss Green during her dinner. She was very surprised to see him. "Miss Green," he said, "why are you eating potatoes and bread? They aren't in your diet." "But, doctor," Miss Green answered, "I ate my diet at lunchtime. This is my dinner."